Call council meeting to order, if I could. Thank you all for attending this early session of council, first of many, I trust. I'm going to ask everybody to please rise for an invocation and pledge of allegiance. Let us bow our heads. Oh, Heavenly Father, we ask that you look over our city, its citizens and our visitors, as we enter the heart of our hurricane season. We thank you for our families and friends who visit us during this time of year. Watch over them as they journey home. We pray for your guidance tonight as we conduct our city's business. Dear Lord, please keep safe all those in public service. We cherish them all. For it is in your name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, Marie, please call the roll.
Councilmember Birdworth.
Here.
Councilmember Vitale. Out of town, right?
He's in Seattle.
Councilmember Buchanan.
Here.
Councilmember Carroll.
Here. Same.
Councilmember Perez.
Here.
Councilmember Harrington. Councilmember Wallace.
Yo.
Councilmember Ward.
Here.
Mayor Cronin.
Present.
Administrator Tucker.
Here.
And Attorney Halverson.
Here.
Thank you. Next order of business is our journal of previous meeting minutes. You have in your package June 24th, 2014. Can I have a motion to approve or amend?
So, approve, motion approved?
Second.
Seconded? Yeah. I threw you a curve there, I know, Jimmy.
Yeah, I had to think about it twice.
All right, any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Citizen comments. I know Bobby Simmons wants to speak to us, and maybe others. We'll see. You're first up.
Thank you, thank you.
Summer cut.
Why is we talking about my haircut today?
Looks marvelous, just marvelous.
Thank you very much. I'm Bobby Simmons. I live 1305 Woodlock Road over in Mount Pleasant, but I operate Acme Low Country Kitchen over there on J.C. Long. I have been, with my partner Roger, we've been planning on doing some expansion to the Acme, fixing up the front of the building, the front porch. I don't know if any of y'all seen that. It's pretty bad. We've been thinking about redoing the whole thing. The wheelchair ramp currently is on state property, so our plans call for moving that to the side of the porch and having that go around to what would be a new deck on the back of the building. Under the covered porch, we would like to add a very, nice outdoor bar. This is kind of what I have pictured for adding that would go to the back deck. The plans are all very nice. It'll make the place look a whole lot better, but I've run into an issue with the parking requirements in my district, which I guess I'm in GC3. And from what I understand, GC3 you have to have a certain amount of parking for all your employees and your customers, where other districts, I think GC2 doesn't have this because they have the lots, I guess, count towards them or something. The only thing I was very clear about was the fact that it was myself and the Seabiscuit have this parking issue. I would like for maybe the council to look to see if we could get this maybe changed a little bit. I do have 27 parking spots on my own currently, which is better than a lot of other places that have none. I was looking to add to the back deck here, anywhere from 20 to 30 seats for people to come to when they're waiting for a table. They could go out back and sit down instead of standing out front in the parking lot. They could go out back, enjoy a drink. I'm not planning on doing any wild and crazy things out there. I'm not planning on having any late night bands or any of that kind of whatnot. It's a bar. I'd like for it to close down at 10 or 11 o'clock every night. That's not going to cause a big issue. But to expand, I'm going to need to do something. I need to maybe have y'all help me with the parking. I talked to Douglas, and I could move easily on a daily basis 10 of my employees to the city lot. I know they can park there in the winter, and I've already talked to Bill, and he's willing to work with me on the parking passes to give my employees so they could park over there, which will free up more parking over here. But if we could maybe look at the ordinance and have the ordinance give me some credit for the lots that are literally like 300 feet away from my building, as it is for GC2, would be great. So Any help
Okay.
I can get with that would be awesome.
All right, we'll
Thank
take
you.
that up.
I got one question.
Before you go.
Does the lot that you rent behind there not apply to that zoning ordinance then?
That's the only parking that applies to me.
Okay.
Is the lot that I lease behind me and what's behind the building. The front and the side of the buildings do not count for parking for me at all.
Okay.
Because they're in the public right of way, is that it?
I believe so, yes. Thank y'all.
All right,
Bobby.
good. Anyone else, any other citizen want to address council at this time? It's your time. Whoa, unheard. All right, we'll move on,
Mr. Mayor,
please.
I think we should recognize our scout troop out there in the audience.
Okay.
Well, this is Troop 502 from Isle of Palms. They're First Gun Methodist. These boys are all working on their citizenship in the community merit badge, and it's a requirement to attend the civic meeting, which they're doing tonight, and then we'll go back and discuss the meeting and what they learned and what their experience was.
Excellent. Welcome. You don't have to be strangers. You can come every month.
Maybe one of them would like to talk.
Okay. No other citizens' comment. We'll move on to reports from standing committees, the few that met. We'll go through Ways and Means Committee meeting, which was held 5:45 on July 15th. The first order of business after we reordered the agenda was we heard a presentation from Leolio and Associates relative to the replacement of the front beach restrooms. I'm not sure how familiar everybody is on this subject, but the restrooms that are there on Front Beach right now on Ocean Boulevard are in need of serious work. We are limited in what we can do with the existing structure because it's in the floodplain, and we have FEMA regulations which come over that. So Leolio has been hired to look at a number of different options for us. One is the same site at Ocean Boulevard. Another one is on J.C. Long behind the Public Safety Building. Another site is on Pavilion, really in our municipal parking lot. And then the other one is at the intersection of J.C. Long and Ocean Boulevard on a small triangle that's there. So they went through their presentation, which they had presented to the Real Property Committee previously. They considered a whole series of factors in their presentation material, such as the flood zones, ADA requirements, proximity to the beach, pedestrian safety, traffic patterns, construction costs, durability in harsh environment, seas, beaches. They considered all those factors and went on to consider the impact on the area in which these options were being considered, impact on the businesses, what's the best use of the property that's there now and other properties that we have, and then the facilities and the aesthetics in the site. The long and short of it answer was we authorized them to proceed to come up with a cost estimate for the construction costs associated with the existing site and then the municipal parking lot on Pavilion as the two remaining options before us, although it became apparent to most that the option most favored would be to construct on the existing site an ADA compliant structure, a structure that was FEMA requirement for the Boy Scouts out there. To build along the beachfront, you have to elevate in order to get out of the floodplain area that's required by federal emergency management, and in that area it's in the V zone, which is a special zone, which means you're in the wave action, which means you have additional requirements put on you if you're on the clearly in the front area. So that plus making it handicap accessible makes it a very difficult site. So as you journey back tonight, if you want to drive through Front Beach, take a look at the existing site, look at the existing restroom, and then picture it 14 feet in the air with a ramp so that people can get to it that are handicapped. That's the complexity of the problem that we're dealing with. So it'll be good for you guys to consider that as you travel on. But we will be, we made a motion at Real Property to award a contract in the amount of $10,290 to Leolio and Associates to provide in order of magnitude, construction costs for the public restroom. So I'll make that as a motion this evening. Second. And we have a second. Any further discussion on the Leolio
I just
scope?
want to
Please.
make a clarification that this is an expansion of their existing contract.
Okay, this is a change to their existing contract, adding $10,290. Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None heard? Fine. The motion carries. Thank you. We went on to consider our report from our treasurer on our monthly financials, and we finished our fiscal year at the end of June, and I'm pleased to report that our revenues were 99% of budget, and our expenditures were 98% of budget. All our revenues are not been yet accounted for. We have additional revenues that incurred in the month of June that get received in the month of July. In fact, some get received actually as late as August, get credited to the prior year because that's the period in which they were incurred. Some property tax, some local option sales tax, broker tax from the insurance activity, Comcast franchise fee, and some other fees. So our revenues are expected to increase and exceed budget, and our expenditures may dabble plus or minus, but we'll definitely have some positive results when we get through the auditing effort, when we finally close the year in full stead. We had a question, and this had to do with our initiative with the Charleston County relative to boat taxes, and the administrator reported that that is still ongoing. Discussion with the assessor's office, etc. I can report here, since we met, that we did send a letter of support to Charleston County demonstrating our willingness to cooperate with them, since they've now embarked on an initiative to make sure that every property owner is paying the appropriate tax in the county. That typically means whether you're paying 4% or 6%, but in our world, it's not only the 4% issue and the 6% issue, it comes down to also the Fairness in Lodging Act, which was just passed by the legislature, which requires those that are renting their property to if you rent it for more than 72 days a year, you can no longer qualify for 4%. You must be a 6% payer. And so the county's initiative, we've said we'd be willing to help them through that for the properties that we're engaged with. They're most appreciative of that, and we'll hear more from that as it goes forward. So that should keep going. We also had a request, Councilman Ward has brought forward the point that a lot of business owners around here just don't record the appropriate local option sales tax when they're filling out their tax forms. They most likely put down the Charleston County tax if they're making an error, as opposed to the Isle of Palms as the appropriate tax jurisdiction. And so the treasurer, along with our building department, will be working on a mailing to all of those that have business licenses to show them what the appropriate codes are as they go forward, because they have to do this monthly. I think it's monthly by hand, isn't it? Right?
Well, they can do it online.
They can do it online. Okay.
Code 2436.
2436. Okay.
Not 1010.
All right. But
It's a magic number. It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's going to Charleston County, and it should be coming to us.
So we'll try and capture all of that. So it's a never-ending battle of finding the cracks in the dike and closing them up. So this may be another good one. Thank you, Jimmy. We went on to talk about our tourism expenditures, or not tourism expenditures, tourism income. Our tourism schedules, our municipal accommodations tax this past year ran 10% ahead of the prior year, FY13. And we have June yet to be added into our total tax, so we'll have an excellent year in our municipal accommodations tax. Nothing from the state or county was received in the period. In our hospitality tax, Bobby is familiar with this. The hospitality tax is running 13% ahead of prior year with only 1 month left to go. So you guys in the hospitality industry should be commended. I mean, we only receive the benefits of it. You get all the rest. So hopefully your business is seeing that increase.
Can make more if we get to expand.
I know if I threw it out there, somebody would salute it. Somebody would salute it.
You were saying Bobby and Bobby. We
Yeah,
got two
well, I
Bobbies
said-
out there to make a
yeah,
difference. And Roger.
It's like feeding a fastball to Derek Jeter, right? Okay.
Fastball, yeah, there you go. Okay, we went on to award a sole source contract to Coastal Science and Engineering for the shoal management project. And this is the engineering in the amount of $107,000. I'll make that as a motion.
Second.
This is the shoal management project, which will be involved with the east end of the island, where we will be moving sand from an area where there's a surplus, where the shoal is attaching. If you've been out there, you can see a significant amount of sand is coming forward, where we currently have a deficit, and that work, if it all goes well, should be executed later in this fall. But we have to get the engineering done, so this is the contract to get that started. So,
Mayor,
please.
forgive me for interrupting, but the 107 is not sufficient. The number was changed to 107,662.
Excuse me. I'm reading that. Oh, man.
We fixed it. And
So my motion is for award of a contract for 107,662. Do I have a second?
I have a second.
All right. Any further discussion, Jimmy?
It's in the budget?
yes, sir, this is contemplated in the budget as part of the stakeholders funds associated with the beach restoration effort. And I didn't bring my budget down to tell you what page that's on, but it is budgeted at $1,265,000.
What is it? You said something about stakeholders portion?
Yes, we are still.
I understand that.
We have roughly $664,000 in stakeholders funds that are part of this initiative.
Okay. So it's in the budget.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. We went on to award a contract to Bobcat of Charleston for the budgeted replacement of an ATV for the police department in the amount of $17,055.94. Is that right, Marie? Okay. This is under a state contract. I'm certain it's in the budget.
It is.
We had a long discussion. I'll make that as a motion.
Second.
Motion seconded. Any discussion on the ATV?
I think that budget amount was 17.5, is that correct?
Yes, this is slightly under budget.
I believe it was 17.5. Thank you.
All right, no other discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Existing one. All right, more of a question. Are we in a position to discuss contract for the ball field?
Yes, I believe we are, and I'm going to have to defer to Director Page on this one. As you all recall, we had a bid opening. All of the bids came in high. We threw out the bids because they were way in excess of our budgeted amount, and we rebid the project. We opened up bids on the rebid project the end of last week. And the reason you do not have documents with this packet is because it was after the documents, after the packet was put together, and we still needed to do some due diligence on references and everything on the particular vendor. So the Recreation Director can report on the results of that. But I believe we're in a position to award a contract.
We are in a position. Friday, I was not sure. We received 2 bids. We actually received a third one, but it was not on time. One bid, the one that I'd like to recommend, is from Wilson and Associates Sports Turf, and it was for $97,320. The other bid that came in on time and with all the right paperwork was Thomas Nursery and Landscaping, and that was for $179,895.13. But just that made me feel a little bit more comfortable. The third bid that came in that was late, it did not arrive on time, was right at $99,000. I did call some references from Wilson and Associates, some that they'd done at Charleston Southern, Bob Jones University, and they all recommended him highly. He said he did an awesome job. They did what they said they would do with the budget that they had and in the time frame that they were given to do this project. So I would like to recommend that we award the contract to Wilson and Associates Sports Turf for $97,320.
Make that in form of motion.
That's a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and second. We need to discuss this. Go ahead.
Well, can you, so obviously we don't have any details in front of us, can you give us a broad outline of the scope of the project?
I can. They're going to kill the existing grass, till up the entire area. They're going to remove the grass and weeds, and they have to take off the island the spoils that they get from there. They will bring in any dirt that is needed in order to crown it properly. They will laser grade it. They will install the irrigation system, and they will have a 4-ton dual smooth drum roller, and they will put Bermuda grass on, sod on the fields, and of course the fertilizer that needs to be done. They also will make sure that between the infields of the baseball and the softball that there is not a lip. That's very important for when you're fielding a ball, that there's not a lip there to trip over. So that would be the scope of the work.
And let me ask, schedule. Can they get it done in this growing season?
Yes, that was the urgency of getting this approved in the July meeting, because they need to lay the sod the end of August.
Question. Apples to apples, 180,000 versus almost 98. That's a big difference.
Well, I think what the other folks were, I think they think there was going to be more to carry off the island than these other guys, because that was the difference in the 99,000 that we really couldn't accept because it did come in on time. But he and the 97,000, they were so apples to apples. The 197, they were from out of state, I think, and I think he was on vacation. He saw the ad, so he came by and then submitted a bid. I'm trying to think where they're from.
Too, right?
Wow.
The budget's...
They're from Greenville,
Right.
Greenville, South Carolina.
Thank you.
Did we specify the species of Bermuda?
We did. It's certified Bermuda grass.
It's in the ball field, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. I mean, there's some that are more salt tolerant than others.
It would be very similar to what's on the soccer field.
Okay, no, that's good. That's lasting. Other questions? Anything? Jimmy?
Explain to me the budget process on this. I don't have it in front of me, but I recollect there was 50 from one pool and 50 from another. What was it?
It's 50 from the Recreation Building Fund, and I believe it was 50 from the capital projects. Again, I didn't bring my budget down, I should have, but I think it's 50 from capital projects and 50 from the Recreation Building Fund.
Do you need them?
You know, this is one of the projects that I was against in the budget.
Okay. All right, any other discussion? None heard? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? One no. Jimmy, thank you. All right, happy mowing. Okay, continuing on with Ways and Means, we had a long discussion about the possibility of the city taking over the roads, and a lot of put and take on what that would mean to the city, the cost of the city, the execution of that, whether the state would even allow us to take over the roads. The state owns, for most people don't realize the state owns the majority of the roads on the island, even the smallest of little avenues. And that work has to be cleaned up significantly before we can continue. I would suspect we are going to continue pursuing this over time to see whether we can take over the roads, and if necessary, we'll conduct a referendum of the citizens as to whether they feel that's the right move for the city as well, and the cost associated with that falling on all of us. So. That proceeded on. We'll keep that on our agenda and keep talking about it. So, that's the Ways and Means.
Could I have a question on that?
Jimmy?
I think we were going to investigate with SCDOT concerning the roads. Did we get any answers in the meantime?
I've made a request to our local level person, mainly about Palm Boulevard. I think that was the only one that we had really any significant question about. And his response to me has been that it has been, that request has been put up to the next level as to whether or not, we could acquire Palm Boulevard. And I've not heard anything back since then. So, because I said we needed a definite answer, that could make a difference. Because if we couldn't do them all, then, that might push some of the same parking problems that we're dealing with now onto the remaining SCDOT roads. So I pushed them for a definitive answer on that.
Thanks for pursuing.
Okay. Good. No further questions for Ways and Means? Thank you. We'll move on. No Public Safety Committee report. However, there is a consideration for a volleyball tournament and have the city be a co-sponsored event, or a city-sponsored event, excuse me, at the Windjammer on Saturday, August the 16th. And Bobby's here if we have any questions. I'm going to ask just your typical...
This is basically, I was asked to do it in a...
You're going to have to get up.
Oh, excuse me.
Name, address.
Same address? These things scare me.
Test.
Basically, it's kind of a typical tournament. Right now, it's just an adult tournament where I do the juniors. I couldn't find anybody to actually run a juniors tournament. I don't run any tournaments. They come to me and ask me about it. And if somebody's, I think, is qualified to run one, then I'll come and try and get the permits for them. But I don't know enough about volleyball to do it myself. And what this is a male tournament, and there'll probably be a male and a co-ed tournament. And the reason, the difference in this is there is money changing hands, and that's why I'm here, in entry fees. And entry fee basically will go to basically buy prizes and for prizes for the tournament. And the Windjammer itself won't receive any entry fees. The entry fee will just actually go to support the tournament itself. It's not a big tournament by any means. It is the third week in August. By then, the beach is kind of, people are a little more tired of it, and it shouldn't be crowded. And there are players in these tournaments that actually travel, and they will they come here from other places, for the tournament. And that's really kind of it in a nutshell.
Do you check the tides?
I always check the tides. The thing about it is, we had a bad storm Easter weekend, I believe it was, and I looked down like, gosh, where are we going to put the tournament? Where are we going to put any nets? And the thing about it, we're having trouble on both ends, but really from the pier to the Windjammer, it's built up nicely over summer. And high tide's at 1:30, which isn't great, but it's not a big high tide. And if they need to take a break, but there's I won't say an abundance of sand there, but it is a lot better than it was last year. And I don't think the tides will be a problem. I mean, it's best to have a high tide in the morning and in the evening instead of the midday, but I can't do anything about tides. I would. The tides and the weather, tides and the rain.
Well, the issue with tides, of course, is people go out to the beach and
Sure.
they get pushed back before you get started, then they feel like you're coming up.
Right.
But
well,
they'll be out there and they'll have started before they...
Oh, yeah. They'll be starting at the entry for these things are when the sun comes up. And they'll be playing, and I don't expect, like right now, there's, I don't expect no more than probably 2 more nets than are already on the beach, and so it's not going to be really an abundance of players. It's kind of a small tournament going on.
Okay. Someone else? Jimmy?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the city-sponsored event at the Windjammer on Saturday, August 16th.
Second. Motion seconded. Any other discussion?
Linda has just
Linda
a
has
comment. I would suggest that we make this approval contingent upon the city investigating the entry fee issue relative to some other requests that we've had come before us. I think it's probably a non-problem, but if it's approved contingent upon that investigation, then if we discover in dialogues with the zoning administrator and the city attorney that it's fine, I can just let Bobby know and it can go forward. If there is a hiccup with it, then, we'll try to deal with that particular hiccup. You'll recall that the city had declined some other volleyball circumstances related to an entry fee of a different entity. So I just want to make sure that we're on solid ground, so if the motion could be contingent upon that, that would make me feel better.
I would second that change in my amendment for...
What could be the issue?
Opening the door to other ventures.
It was probably something we should discuss in executive session if you all want to discuss it. I think that it's something that merits our just looking into to make sure that we're okay.
The underlying principle is we don't allow anybody to conduct business on the beach.
Right.
So if this is perceived by fees being paid and people therefore paying a fee to use our beach, then they're conducting business on the beach.
Well, photographers on the beach, though, right?
That is a specific section of our ordinance that allows that for a specific period of time for the photographer.
What's the difference between this year's tournament and last year's?
Well, he just said there is.
Well, there's always been entry. There's an entry fee in the juniors program that I put on also, so if y'all want to just go ahead and throw that out there for next year, because I'll be glad not to do it. It's a lot of work for me.
Okay, go ahead. How is it different than our other beach runs? I mean, not the one that we just had, but like the other ALS beach. I mean, obviously there's an entry fee for that one as well. There's entry fees for.
But nobody's making money at those.
It's a charity.
It's a charity thing. And in the past, you said any funds, any surplus funds over and above the expenses they'd be donated to.
Oh, I'll be glad to do that. I'll be glad to do that.
I don't see any difference between this and last year.
Well, when he stood up there, he said there's different because there is a fee, and so.
I remember last year there was something about donating to a charity that was involved. So there might have been entry fees last year, but it was maybe the donation part. I do remember something about.
Well, he just said all that. He said if there's anything left over, he'll donate.
Well, he just said it now.
He just said it now. He didn't when he first said it.
I just want to make sure that the city is being consistent.
Okay.
So that's
just another thing. Insurance is already in place for any events.
Okay.
I'm happy to labor the point, but I do not see the difference between this year and last year. There's fees this year, fees last year. The only thing Bobby didn't do was he failed to mention I'm going to donate the excess to the turtle team or whatever.
And that's what Linda wanted to. That's what she wanted to clarify.
I want to clarify that now.
Well, I'll be glad to donate any excess. I'm not expecting a big turnout. I'll be glad to donate whatever's left over, but I really am not expecting a big leftover because it's really a small, more or less local tournament.
So I don't see the difference.
Do you want to adjust your motion?
Question, Mr. Mayor? But is there an outside group or whatever?
No, it's Jake Elliott. Jake's the College of Charleston volleyball coach, and he's been basically kind of running the volleyball at the Windjammer for quite a while. He's gotten real busy with the College of Charleston, haven't been able to do it a whole lot. And, it's really, there's no outside sponsorship or anything. It's basically guys getting together and wants to see who's the best. It's kind of like a golf tournament, a local golf tournament or whatever, but without the cheating. What? Whoever wins the golf tournament's the biggest cheater. I mean, I'll never win a golf tournament.
We're obviously drifting here. All right.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second, and we're not going to deal with Linda's concern. She'll take that up with Bobby at a later time to make sure that all works correctly. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Okay, thanks.
Play well.
All right, not me.
No cheating.
All right, nothing else? Public safety, Public Works had no committee meeting.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, I know we didn't have a meeting, but I would like to,
Sure.
if I could get a brief update from the administrator. She's closer to the tracks on this than I am on a daily basis about what the Front Beach lighting is. Is there anything to report with SCEG at this point?
SCEG is working. I did get a written report from them yesterday that I was going to present at the Public Works meeting, and I did not bring it down with me. It's in the file for that meeting. But they are making progress. They've gotten some work done. They were hoping to be able to come forward in about another month with the photometrics, they call it,
That's a big,
on that project.
It's a big part of it. But it's doubtful we'll be ready for Public Works meeting. You're speculating.
Yeah, just the report on what they've done.
Right, well, you know the committee's really interested in pushing that project forward. Talking to people on the Front Beach and are very excited about it. So thank you.
All right, nothing else in Public Works? Recreation Committee had no meeting?
We had no meeting, but like a couple little notes. This past weekend, we had the beach run. We had between 350 and 400 participants when you count the walkers and the children, which is a great turnout. Next month, we'll have real numbers for everyone. And just for general purposes, we've had some changeover at the rec center, but when we have young adults, there's always, average time in the rec center is probably 1.5 to 7 years, and this is just part of that turnover, so no concerns.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good. Any other questions for Rec? No, let's go on to personnel, please. Cindy.
The regular meeting of the Personnel Committee was held at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, July 1st. The minutes of June 3rd were referred back to the city clerk for clarification on the full year expenses for the salary adjustments, and therefore not approved at this meeting. We then had no citizen comments. Under whole business, we had a discussion of vacancies on our boards and commissions. It's one of the principal responsibilities of the Personnel Committee. Councilman Harrington moved to recommend to council the appointment of Peter Doherty to fill the vacancy on BOZA until the end of 2014, if he's interested in service. Councilman Patelli seconded, and the motion passed unanimously. Therefore, I move that council consider the appointment of Peter Doherty to fill the current vacancy on the Board of the Zoning Appeals.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? I'm assuming he's expressed interest to me that he'd like to come back and work within the city, so, okay. All right, no other discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We then moved on to consideration of the new citywide evaluation tool. This, again, is one of the tasks that we have slated for this year. Chief Buchanan created a computerized evaluation tool based on the tools that the city has been using successfully for a number of years, and all department managers have approved. This is a fillable form that makes it very efficient, and when completed, the program does the calculations of the rankings. I just remind council that the only reason that we're looking at changing this form is that our existing software will no longer support the forms we have currently. A point to note is that the evaluator must qualify the numerical ranking with comments before the program will advance to the next category. Therefore, this cannot be just a numerical evaluation, which I think is very useful. We have included in your packet our two new evaluation tools, one for supervisor and one for employee. Councilman Harrington moved to recommend to City Council to adopt the new evaluation forms for supervisors and employees. Councilman Patelli seconded, and the motion passed unanimously. However, since that meeting, there have been questions regarding the calculation formula used on the evaluation tool. Since Chief Buchanan is the author of that software, we require his expertise in answering these questions. Therefore, I ask the indulgence of council in allowing us to send this evaluation tool back to the Personnel Committee.
Okay, that's fine. My concern is if he's the only one who knows the formula.
His ranking as well.
If he goes off in his mobile home and is in Colorado sometime, and we need to know the formula, we ought to have it vested with somebody else somewhere. All right, you'll catch it. I hate to be boxed in by...
That is a concern.
Job security. Well, That's what, he just said job security. That's not his job.
Right.
Let's hope.
Okay, so therefore, we'll send these two forms back to committee and get a
We'll deal with it
clarification
when
of
you're
the
ready
case.
to
Right.
bring it
Can I ask a
forward.
quick question, though, while you're on that? With the numerical, I understand that, but with the comments, I mean, where does that come into play? You've got to have comments on a numerical.
Right, but the comments aren't ranked, just the numerical is ranked. But on this form, you can't just circle a number and then go down and circle another number. You have to qualify what that number means. So it's a means by which, when you're doing the evaluation with the employee, you can refer to the comments. That, you have received a 5, but 9 out of the 10, or whatever the number is, mention that this is something you may want to look into on the comments section.
Okay, good.
We then reviewed the city administrator's job description and evaluation. We had a great deal of discussion in looking at revising the 1993 job description of our city administrator. And therefore, after that, to review all of the supervisors' job descriptions, just as a means of bringing things up to date. For history, a consultant was hired in 2009, I believe. I can't remember. It was somewhere in that area. To write job descriptions and to do a whole evaluation process. Because the calculation for the salary changes was just so astronomical, council didn't adopt anything that this consultant recommended, including the job descriptions. And we are now looking at those job descriptions in comparison to the job descriptions that we have to see if there is any good portions of the Archer study that can be incorporated. In other words, not just switch to the Archer job descriptions, but use that information, because a great deal of time and effort went into getting the information for those job descriptions. So that's the process we're going through right now. Yes, sir.
While you're on this subject, the Archer study, basically, it wasn't just the salary differences were involved with council at the time. Since I was on council at the time, the majority of council was not happy with the actual job descriptions that was produced by the consultant. In fact, if I remember correctly, the city administrator's job description was about this thick, where
yes.
Most job descriptions, and that's what I do for a living, is involved in hiring people, is 1 to 2 pages. So it was just the amount of detail, and it was impossible for anyone to really be able to use the job description as a tool for their performance, and it was because it was so ambiguous, it would be hard for the city to really manage that such process. So that's why we never moved forward with that.
And that's why we determined not to just adopt the Archer study, but to look at that and to see if there are any portions of it that could be utilized in combination with the 1993 job descriptions. What we want to end up with is a viable job description that allows us to therefore have performance indicators, that therefore can be evaluated as part of the evaluation tool. Right now we have a job description and we have an evaluation tool, and there's no match in between them. So what we want to try to do is create a job description in which there are performance indicators that therefore, when you do the evaluation, there's the link between the two. And that's the goal that we're setting out. At our next meeting, we have tasked each member of the Personnel Committee to look at both of these documents and to come up with a draft, their own personal draft of what they would like to see the job description look like. After we have formed a consensus amongst the members of the Personnel Committee, then we'll bring it to council for their approval and their look at the job description before we move forward in any adoption.
Good.
We're doing the same thing with the evaluation tool, because as you realize, the city administrator's evaluation is 2 parts. One is the evaluation tool we just mentioned before, which is all subjective. And then in addition, there is an objective part. So what we're looking at is, are those objective topics meaningful in today's market of what we need to be looking at? and also the weighted rankings. Are we agreeing on how much emphasis should be put on each of those? And again, we will review that in personnel, and we will bring that all to council before we establish it. We're looking at a time frame so that we are working on this now so that the approvals can be in place so that that evaluation tool can be used for 2015.
Good.
Okay? Okay, that was the majority of what we were discussing. We also then looked at the fact that we wanted to review all of the job descriptions of our department managers, but we didn't want to put that on a strict timeline, to have it work from a bottom up rather than a top down. So we're asking that each of the department managers look at the job descriptions to see if there are any revisions that need to be taking place. We're not going to basically tell them what it should be, let them bring it up to us. There being no new business, we continue to miscellaneous business, which included employee recognition and recommendation for Employee of the Month. I think in your packets you have the memos that were written by both the police department, 2 officers from the police department, Patrol Officer Postel and Patrol Officer Reynolds, were being formally recognized for their interaction with Mr. R.W. Newsom, in which he stated you were very helpful, understanding, and professional, displaying the positive attitudes and professionalism we want in all our IOP officers. And so therefore, we applaud these 2 officers. In addition, the employee recommended for Employee of the Month is PFC Matt Storer for his actions in the theft of a moped from the locked storage area belonging to the Windjammer. All of a sudden, here comes a gentleman on a moped finding out that he was stealing it, not his at all. So PFC Storer was able to apprehend him along with other officers that he called in. And again, your attention to the area and your actions are commendable. You continue to be a valuable asset to this department, and your professionalism and dedication to your duties is an example to others. So we recognize him. Our next meeting is going to be 10 a.m. on Wednesday, August 6th, in the conference room. Our meeting was adjourned at 11:30 a.m., so you see we have long meetings. The July staffing report includes no vacancies within City Hall, Public Works, Building, Planning and Zoning, or Fire. But I note that a new firefighter is coming on board next week to fill the 1 vacancy that did exist. So we're at full compliance with our fire department. In the police department, we have 2 vacancies, animal control and a beach service officer. We also want to mention that the department is without 1 police officer. However, there is a commitment of that officer position, and it's expected to be filled in 2 weeks. So even though it's vacant, we do have a candidate. In the recreation department, we have 3 part-time vacancies. 2 recreation supervisor positions that were vacated, we have commitments for. The offers have been extended, and new employees will start August 11th. So those 2 supervisory positions have been vet. Our June safety sweepstake winners, under general government, Laura McClellan, police department, Diane Tarr, Public Works, Rob Graham, and fire department, Victor Lawrence. And that concludes my report.
Excellent, thank you. Very good. Any questions for personnel?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes?
I have a couple things. Number one, on the beach services officer, is at this late of the season, is there plan to fill that position? We're going to leave it go open until the balance of the season?
We will fill it. If we can find a qualified candidate, we will fill it, because those people's duties generally extend all the way to the end of September.
Okay. All right, thank you. The other question I have is on page 6 of the Personnel Committee, and it's the second paragraph.
6.
And what that has to do is with the city administrator's financial goals. To me, having the capital budget involved in the city administrator financial goals really is like mixing apples to oranges, and is not a real good indicator of our performance. Particularly, I'll use an example. In fiscal year last year, we had a renovation of the Tidewater dock. And since we decided to change direction, it's, there's a surplus in the account for that. So I really think that the Personnel Committee should go back and consider the general fund budget as a better barometer for performance. With that said, maybe the percentages for performance may need to be adjusted. Example, that 3% window is probably maybe a little bit too challenging and stiff, and we might need to do something like that. But I really feel the management of the general fund budget is a better indicator, and it's something we talk about every Ways and Means Committee. That's something we highlight, where we are in the general fund budget. So I'd like the Personnel Committee to take my thoughts into consideration with that.
Certainly will.
Very good. All right, let's go on to Real Property Committee, please.
Okay, batter up. All right, first real property meeting was on July 7th. All members were present with a slight agenda change. Leoli and Associates went through the same thing which the mayor talked about during the Ways and Means, so I'm not going to go over that information. We already covered it. Mayor did an excellent job with that. As far as comments on marina tenants, Brian Berrigan talked about that car that was booted and a complaint from the person involved with that, and went over what happened in the case from his perspective of that. And just, parking is a problem at the marina, and we really ask people to follow direction of the employees there, and so we can have a smooth operation. Under old business, consideration of the marina outpost lease amendments. Brian Berrigan basically was supposed to talk to his attorney about drawing up a new legal agreement for the city to review. Brian has not done that because he's waiting for the finalization of the 2015 budget. There was a lot of discussion over the lease, and Councilman Buchanan suggested that the city look at a longer-term lease that would allow the tenant pay for large capital items like walk-in coolers. So the city administrator said she would be discussing that with the city attorney. Under new business, we passed unanimously $107,662 for consulting work required for the beach renourishment or the shoal management program. That was passed unanimously, and the next meeting is scheduled for Monday, August 4th at 5:30 p.m.
Very good. Questions for Real Property? Sandy?
One question. In looking at the long-term leases and reading the minutes you're talking about, as far out as 30-year type of, and I know this isn't in stone yet because you're still looking at it, but I'll bring your attention to the Planning Commission minutes. And on page 2, part of the pro forma that they're looking at with the RFP for the marina site is going to include, the statement here is, a pro forma analysis, there was no mention of reviewing the lease arrangements with various tenants. It couldn't be done without looking at the leases, so they agreed that the RFP will include for this contractor that they would be looking at the leases. So I'd caution us not to go forward with any kind of long-term lease arrangement. The RFP for the marina site is going to include reviewing those leases.
Okay. Well, it's right now everything is in a sense of discussion and looking at a lot of different options. So we're not at a point of doing something specifically today with that.
Right.
So.
All right. Any other questions for Real Property? All right, let's move on. We had minutes from the Board of Zoning Appeals, and as noted, the Planning Commission. Any issues for them? None heard. Up to item 9, bills are already in your possession. We're into second reading of ordinance 2014-6, an ordinance amending Title I Government Administration, Chapter 3, Procedures, Committees, Ordinance, and Use of Code, Article A, Rules of Order and Procedure, Section 1-3-1, regular meetings, City of Isle of Palms Code of Ordinances to change the time for regular meetings, City Council to 6 o'clock in the evening. I'll make that as a motion.
Second.
Suspend the reading of the ordinance.
Second.
And seconded. Any discussion on that? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Moving on again, second reading of ordinance authorizing granting of an easement in the portion of the city's property titled TMS number 571-07-00-029 to the South Carolina Electric and Gas company for conversion of power lines to underground facilities. I'm going to make a motion first that we amend the first reading of the ordinance to include the revised exhibit, see if I get this right, Exhibit 1 to the ordinance, which
Correct.
you
That's
received
correct.
this evening, which will become Exhibit A in the easement proper. So you have this sketch, and does anybody want to read it to us? No.
I can't.
It's an eye test, frankly.
I'll second that motion.
So we have a motion and a second. This is Thomas and Hutton's work, and I really wish it was dated, but we'll get to that before easement is executed.
Could I ask the city administrator to walk us through this real quick?
Sure. First of all, I should clarify that SCE&G did offer to make the trip over late this afternoon to bring a larger version of this map, and I told them that the computer-generated version would be fine, even though it's very small, because there are no changes from this as it was originally contemplated. It's just that these are the final CAD drawings on it. The goal of this easement that's being granted to SCE&G would be to provide space on the Isle of Palms Water and Sewer Company's wastewater treatment site at the intersection of 41st and Waterway Boulevard to be able to place the power poles and the power lines that are currently adjacent to that site, to be able to place those lines and poles underground in the future, and the infrastructure that would be required in order to do that, to place that within the fence of the Isle of Palms Water and Sewer Commission's wastewater treatment site, which is city-owned property at this time. So this is an easement to SCE&G so that there will be room to do that at some point in the future. There are at least 4, my memory is correct, there are at least 4 overhead poles there and lines, and so they would need the room to put those boxes that are required in order for the lines to go underground. We don't know when that will be done, but at least there will be space for it reserved on this site.
Okay. Answer your question?
Yep. I'm surprised. Why didn't this go to real property?
It involves city-owned real estate.
Okay. Is that what real property does, city-owned real estate?
Right.
Oh, you said didn't?
Why did
not?
this not go to real property?
I think that at one point in real property, we actually discussed that it was going to happen, but, or that we were trying to make it happen, and then we got the ordinances prepared for first reading, and we were just trying very hard to get this accomplished. As you know, we will be considering some ordinances in the future related to the Isle of Palms Water and Sewer Commission, and we needed to get this done before we tackle that.
Okay. Any other discussions? All in favor of second reading? As amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Now we're up to item 10, first reading by title only of ordinance 2014-08, an ordinance to levy and impose, subject to a referendum, a 1% beach preservation fee on the gross proceeds derived from the rental or charges for accommodations furnished to transients for consideration, which are subject to the local accommodations tax within the city of Isle of Palms pursuant to the Beach Preservation Act. You can read it yourselves. This referendum with this ordinance, we'll have second reading shortly with passage of this ordinance. We will then conduct a referendum of the voters in the November election, and that's contained in the ordinance. So I'll make a motion for first reading by title only.
Second.
Motion and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None heard. Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor,
Thank you very
one
much.
question.
Please.
Do I understand that these funds have to be kept in a separate fund?
Correct.
Secretary. Now, part of this, we've been looking at the beach preservation part of it, but it also includes maintenance of public beach accesses within the corporate limits of the city.
Correct.
Does that mean that the only funds that to do our beach accesses, they will come out of this restricted fund?
They don't have to.
They don't have to, but we have that option.
You have the option.
So the beach access is in the beach itself.
So they're not saying that the this separated fund, the segregated fund, is for these uses only?
No,
Okay,
no.
just want to make sure.
So, I mean, yeah.
Let me kind of restate it, so that the intent of the law is for there to be funds available and generated for beach preservation activities, and they're all listed there, beach restoration being one of them, walkovers being one of them. But it does not mean that that is the only source of money that a local government can use for those activities.
Okay.
So you're generating...
That's what I wanted to clarify.
Yeah, you're generating a new source that can then be augmented by other sources of funds that you have, or you may choose to do those activities out of another source of funds.
Because we do beach accesses with the other ATAX monies.
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we weren't going to be, corralled into only this 1%.
No.
Okay.
All right, all in favor of first reading, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carried. Up to miscellaneous business, request for a discussion on our social media initiatives. Do you want to take it on?
Well, I will kind of give you what our status is. Emily's not here, and as you all know, most activities related to social media and the website fall within her purview. I can tell you that we believe that we can begin to move forward with some of the social media. What we would like to do is target doing a version of that puts information out but does not respond to comments back in. Since we do have email access to everyone, and if people need to have dialogue, they can use email. This will, limit the amount of constant attention those formats do require. So we will try to get Facebook and Twitter underway, but from a standpoint of pushing information out, not necessarily getting into dialogues or responding to requests coming in. We just don't have staffing at this time to be able to be adequately responsive to those kinds of inquiries. Maybe in the future we will be able to open that up a little more, but for right now we want to take it one step at a time. And it will take us a little while, but we would like to have that as a goal.
Jimmy.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. With the Municipal Association of South Carolina, they talked about the social media with our failure of the electronic message board. The Facebook, the Twitter is the here and now generation. I see these scouts out there. I mean, the electronic generation is there. The recreation department, the sanitation, the police, the fire, anything that comes up, we can put it out there. It's instantaneous. So I think we really do need to be moving forward with it. Thank y'all for doing that.
Michael?
Mr. Mayor, Facebook, Twitter, I mean, they have their purpose, and I really think as far as getting information out there is, and I've talked to several people about this over the last couple of weeks, is an IOP app where people in Somerville or people on the island want to check what's going on with the island. They can check the weather. We'll let them get access, say, the Windjammer video cam, etc. I mean, this, to me, that's the future of communication, to let people know what's going on as far as parking issues, weather issues, etc. And so I think our focus needs to be on an app where most people can be people with a smartphone, and the high penetration of the population have smartphones now would be able to access that information.
So you would prefer to take the information we put out on IOP.net and make that an app?
It would be, well, that would be a lot of the data that would be on there, but also it would be complemented, it would be, if you think about it, there's a lot on IOP.net that is not what I call smartphone data. Okay, but I'm talking about something that would have a clear set of distinction thing, which would talk about traffic, would talk about weather, talk about special events like the IOP beach run or fireworks or whatever, and allow people to, use that. So, I think that's the direction we should be looking at it going forward.
Yeah, right.
Barb?
Baby steps. I mean, a lot of the things you just mentioned are on the website right now. The weather, the fireworks, so an app is going to be labor intensive also. I mean, someone's going to have to be keeping it up all the time. So, good idea. We need to look into it, but just there's so many hours in the day for Emily.
Yeah, I don't know what it takes to put an app together, and then you have to feed it. Maybe it has to grow up. Jimmy?
I just think it's a major step that finally people can make a comment to the city about what's going on with Facebook and Twitter. Up until this point, there's no way for anybody to respond or make a comment or make a suggestion or for citizens to have input. So I think it's a great idea. I'm glad it's going forward.
Okay. Any other discussions? I think you have that. Marching order. We'll follow your progress on that. We have a special meeting set for 6:30 next Tuesday, the 29th. Hope all can be there, if not majority.
Mr. Mayor, do you want to make that 6 or 6:30?
6:30.
We have it 6:30.
Okay.
We have to have 7 days plus.
Okay.
So
Yeah, give them a little
half hour
cushion.
more. And then our regular meeting is set for 6 o'clock on Tuesday, August 26th. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So made.
Second?
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. We're out of here. Thank you all.